Hey everyone, welcome back to some new Malicious Compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of our request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Overtime Approval. I work in a field where an urgent response is the entire purpose. My employer suddenly became budget conscious, which led to them becoming much more stringent about our frequent overtime. We were told that all scheduled overtime had to be approved. Cool, no issue there. However, when it came to unscheduled overtime, which is where the bulk of overtime came from, the problem arose. Any unscheduled overtime would be reviewed after the fact. If it was determined that overtime wasn't justified, there were two options. We could either be faced with being forced to take comp time within the same pay period so that the extra time would be negated, or they would attempt to not pay or claw back money, which is illegal. Cue malicious compliance. I tend to work earlier hours than our main office, so it's not uncommon for me to get phone calls once I've returned home. Usually, this is not a big deal. I handle the call and go about my day. Most times, because it's only a few minutes, I don't even request the overtime pay. This all changed once the policy went into effect. On the very first day under the new rules, I received a call from our main office about 10 minutes after I got home. I answered the phone by stating, "Hello, my workday ended 10 minutes ago. Would you like for me to continue this call on overtime, or can this be dealt with tomorrow?" The response was, "No overtime. This will only take a minute." I ultimately ended the call and dealt with the issue the following day. This occurred about a half dozen times over the span of a few days. Then I really made my point on this one. I received a phone call after hours that I was needed for an urgent, not emergent. I wouldn't have jeopardized anything to make a point. Response. I listened to the details of what was occurring and informed my supervisor that I'd be happy to get on the road. Just as soon as they'd sent me an email stating that an after-hours response was required and overtime for the night was authorized. Nothing crazy, just a sentence or two. The response I got was, "Just get on the road. I'll send you an email later or tomorrow." I refused. I informed them that I was off duty, that they could either send me the email as requested so I'd be covered, or they could have someone from outside my territory respond in my place, which would have delayed the response over an hour. This back and forth continued for about 3 to 4 minutes until they relented and sent me an email, which I received in about 30 seconds. My points, along with my coworkers who took similar actions, were made. Our leadership only pressed forward with requiring approval for pre-scheduled overtime, and even that has gone by the wayside. The next story is called No Exceptions. I work in IT and worked with one client for years and years, looking after their various networks. Normally, it's a 9 to 5 kind of job, but if something goes wrong after hours, it can become a real emergency for them quickly. One day, the manager came down to visit our small team at his client's office. We were told they renegotiated the contract and took a 5% cut on the job, so they asked if we would all take a 5% pay cut as well. No one accepted that, and we were ready to walk if they tried to push it. The next week we were told there was to be 0 overtime without prior authorization of the company president himself, and there are no exceptions to this ironclad rule. They had us repeat the new policy back to them and emailed it to us. The only thing I said to them was, "This is going to end poorly." 2 days later, the core router that connects all the different parts of the big data center failed at 9 PM. Our manager called my cell phone and said to jump in my car because the data center was down. I told him that I don't have authorization from the company president, who had apparently gone camping for the long weekend with his family and was out of contact. I told him sorry, I can't do any work as it hasn't been authorized. He tried to say how he was authorizing it. I told him he specifically told us just earlier this week it has to be from the company president and there are no exceptions. If he can get a hold of the president, then give me a call back. He was mad. The client was mad, as they were told I refused to help. He left an angry voicemail for the president about me. They did get it fixed when the manager drove himself to the data center in the wee hours of the morning to pull the bad circuit board. The next business day, first thing in the morning, the manager, the client's CIO, and our company president were waiting for me to come in and told me to come into the meeting room. It went as expected, with raised voices, accusations, and many final warnings, until I pulled out the email and gave it to the client's CIO to read. It took him 10 seconds to read, and then the CIO asked me to head back to my desk and carry on with my day. I never heard what was said in the room after I left, but there was a new directive that afternoon that overtime work no longer must have prior authorization. I worked another 2 years there, before I left for a better job. The third story is called Submit My Appointments. I worked overnights at my job. That's what I was hired for, and that has been my regular schedule for almost 3 years. A few weeks back, I offered to fill in on a single daytime shift because a coworker unexpectedly quit. That turned out to be a bad idea. Since then, I have been scheduled for more daytime shifts. I didn't have a whole lot else going on, and I always liked more money, so I didn't mind too much. That is until one of these shifts overlapped a medical appointment I had scheduled over a month previously. When I informed the boss, they replied that I could ask someone to cover it for me. No, I work nights. I basically plan most of my life so that it doesn't interfere with my working and sleeping hours. If you schedule me for something outside of that, it's on you. The schedule for my appointment got rearranged and everybody was happy. But then the boss told me to make sure to submit all future appointments, so they know not to schedule me. I restated my case about only working nights, but the response was, I can't promise that. If we need you, we need you. Okay, if you insist, I submit my appointments. Previously, I could manage taking care of most everyday tasks without asking for time off. From now on, every single plan I make is going to be a full day and night. And I have a lot going on right now, so I hope they are looking forward to scheduling around at least 1 to 2 nights a week that wouldn't have been a problem before. The last story is called Well Done. Back in 2014, I was hired to work on a cruise ship. I started off as a lowly restaurant steward, dusting tables and mopping floors in the buffet. After a few months, I was promoted to back waiter and was moved to the main dining hall. I quickly caught on to the back waiter duties, and my front waiter, who we will call Bert, took notice of my hard work. After a couple of weeks in my new position, Bert told me that it was only a matter of time before I got promoted to front waiter, and he wanted to start training me on how to be one. So he told me to shadow him when the next group of passengers were seated in our section, so I can observe how he did his front waiter duties. Unfortunately for us, the next group of passengers seated in our section was an 8-top of Karens. Bert and I welcomed them to the restaurant. They were friendly at first, and the head guy asked, "There's a show in the main theater we want to see that begins in about an hour. Is it possible for us to get our dinners, eat them, and get to the show on time?" To which Bert says, "Absolutely, depending on what you order." After looking over the menu, they were ready to place their order, and 5 out of 8 of them wanted the New York steak, the one single menu item that took the longest to cook. Bert told them this, and that if they all wanted to order the New York steak, that there is no guarantee that we can get them their dinners fast enough to eat and be able to get to the show on time. Bert suggested alternative dishes that we could get out much quicker, but they refused to change their orders. Bert read the order back to them, and they all confirmed that it was correct. Bert handed me the ticket, and I ran back to the kitchen to assemble their meals. My first stop was the New York steak counter, and to my horror, there was a line a mile long of raiders waiting to drop off their tickets. This ship has a max capacity of about 3,500 passengers. The main dining hall seats nearly 1,000 people. I have never seen the New York counter as busy as it was this night. It seemed like everyone and their mothers were ordering the New York steak. I would have to wait at least 20 minutes just to drop off my ticket, and God knows how long afterward till the cook got to my ticket in order to cook them. With the wait time and juggling the other tables Bert and I had to wait on in our section, I knew there was no chance they can get their meals and make it to the show on time. So I rushed out to Bert, told him what the ETA was on the New York steaks, and that he needed to tell them that they needed to change their order. Otherwise, they will miss their show. Bert relayed my message to them, and he came back to me and said they still refused to change their order. Bert shrugged his shoulders. Well, we did all that we could to try and convince them to change their order so they can make it to the show they wanted to see, but they refused to change it. So if they miss their show, they miss it, and it will be their fault. I did my best to get their meal as quickly as possible, while also waiting on the other tables in our section. Sure enough, they missed the start of the show, and they were angry. They demanded to speak to the restaurant manager. They fabricated multiple lies about the bad service they received, saying that we were lazy, incompetent, purposely dragged our feet and lied about how long they were really waiting for their meals. Bert and I told the manager our side of the story. He believed us and said he would try and calm them down, but told us to do our best to get them their meals as quickly as possible, so we can get them out of the restaurant as soon as possible. Finally, the meals were ready. I bring them out and hoped that this would be the end of the fiasco. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Two of the female Karens called Bert and me back to the table and complained, "Our steaks are rare." We ordered well done. Bert and I huddled. He looked over his notepad where he had the two lady steaks written down as rare. He asked me if I heard them say they wanted rare steaks when we took their order earlier on, and I nodded yes. So Bert approached them. "Ladies, my backwaiter and I both heard you two say you wanted rare steaks. I read the order back to you, and you both said that the order was correct." But the Karens responded, "We've never ordered rare steaks in our lives. You two messed up. Take these back. We don't want them. We want brand new steaks." So Bert hands me the steaks and told me to go back into the kitchen and order 2 well-done New York steaks on the fly. This means it's an emergency and we need this order right now. So I rushed back into the kitchen. The New York steak counter was still extremely busy. I rushed to the cook and asked for 2 well-done New York steaks on the fly. The cook angrily yells at me, "No one is getting anything on the fly tonight. You get to the back of the line and wait your turn like everyone else." At this point, I began to panic. It was going to be at least another 40 minutes, if not longer, for the 2 Karens to get their well-done steaks. I didn't want Bert to deal with the Karens any longer than he had to. And the restaurant manager did tell me to do my best to get them their meals as soon as possible, so we can get them out of the restaurant as quickly as possible. So cue the malicious compliance. The Karens wanted well done, and they are going to get well done. There were microwaves in the kitchen. I flipped the steaks over to hide the previously made cut marks, threw them into the microwave and nuked them till they were well done. I brought them back out to the Karens and prayed to every deity I could think of that they wouldn't realize what I have done. Fortunately, they didn't. The Karens ate their meal in complete silence, giving Bert and me the dirtiest glares while doing so, and stomped off when they were finished. Once they left, I told Bert what I did. It took him a moment to digest what I told him. He finally said, "Under normal circumstances, I would be very upset with you, and I strongly suggest that you never do what you just did ever again. However, these aren't normal circumstances. Those people were rude, unreasonable, liars, and they didn't even tip. So, you know what? Well done." Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.